Hi, this is Jeff Curto, and welcome to episode number 71 of Camera Position, a podcast about the creative side of photography. Well, let's see. I'm going to let you in on the secret. Draw a little closer to your iPod, or your Zune, or your iRiver, or your computer, or whatever you listen to Camera Position on, because I'm going to tell you how to get really good at photography. Yep, I'm going to give you the big secret, the real big secret that tells everybody how to get really good at photography. It's just a few steps, but I think that you'll see once we go through them that it makes some sense. And frankly, those of you who've been listening along in Camera Position for a while will find many of these things very familiar. So getting good at photography, getting really good at photography, requires only a few steps. Number one, make photographs. There's no substitute for making lots of photographs. Photography is a learn by doing operation, and making photographs is really the only way to assimilate all of photography's possibilities. And if you don't make photographs, you really can't learn how to make photographs. And it's sort of something that I've always been surprised that a lot of the students that I've had over the years just sort of somehow think it's going to absorb into them in some sort of osmosis type way. But really, making photographs of things you care or know about is a logical extension of this, and really making photographs of things that you understand, things that you want to share with the world. But lots and lots of photographs, making lots of photographs. And unfortunately, our digital era, our digital age makes that a lot easier. Back in the film days, making photographs cost money. Now it costs some time in post production, but making lots and lots of photographs is step one to getting really good at photography. Another part, step two, is looking at photographs. This is a part A of looking at photographs. You can learn a great deal about the tonal qualities of good photographs or the color qualities of good photographs simply by looking at them. Well, this might seem fairly obvious, but very few people who are trying to learn photography take advantage of analyzing the work of recognized photographers for how they've handled the expressive qualities of tone and color. Looking at real photographs in museums or galleries can be a really terrific thing because looking at reproductions in books is always sort of a compromise because the printed publication always needs to take some liberties with the color simply because of the physics of putting ink down on paper. So, looking at real photographs in museums or galleries, or even better yet, collecting photographs that you really love, helps you really understand how photography works. So, looking at photographs, part B, can also help you develop your sense of how subjects are handled in images, as well as what subjects have been addressed by those who've come before you. Successful photographers pay careful attention to every square inch of their images, choosing camera position, field of view, watching the edges, paying close attention to the way objects relate to each other in the frame. And certainly, I know that many of you out there who are listening to Camera Position also listen to the History of Photography podcast that I do. And that, I think, can help introduce you to a number of photographers that you might not otherwise be familiar with, and also help you see that other photographers have gone before you who've addressed some of the similar kinds of issues. There's nothing really new in the world, but what we do is variation on a theme. Part four is reading about photographs. Reading what critics and photographers and historians and others have written about photography can be very helpful in understanding how pictures work and how they affect others. There are a number of great books that can help you with this, and I'll put links to them on the cameraposition.com blog page. But among them are two just wonderful compilations of essays or writings about photography or by photographers. One is edited by Alan Trachtenberg, Classic Essays on Photography, and I'll put a link to that on the Camera Position blog page. And another one is one that, boy, I have just had a constant companionship with for many years, Photography in Print, edited by the great Vicki Goldberg. And this is a huge compilation of many essays about photography and about photographers written by critics, written by photographers, and written by a number of other socially important people of the era. And the era runs from the beginning of photography's history all the way through the 1980s when the book was compiled. So getting really good at photography involves those things, but it also involves this sort of fifth item, and that is many different things: listening to music, looking at art, traveling, trying new foods, reading great books, talking to strangers, and some of those other things your parents told you not to do. So, getting good at photography means exposing yourself to the world, giving yourself the experience of being out there in the world, looking around, and beginning to assimilate ideas about what living in the world means, what looking at the world means. So, being a good photographer certainly involves things like technical considerations and understanding your equipment, understanding your materials, understanding the qualities of light and the way in which to put them down on to film or our digital sensors. But being a good photographer is really about being an active participant in the world. The farther your horizons expand, the more you begin to realize that everything you know or have experienced can be brought to your work in photography. And I would submit that that's really what life is about, too. Life is about expanding the horizons, expanding what you know, thinking about new things, assimilating those new ideas with ideas you already have to create new ideas. So in reality, photography is simply an extension of your life. It is certainly about things like looking at photographs and reading about photographs and reading about the way in which people think about photographs. And it's very certainly about making photographs, but it's also about experiencing the world. So getting really good at photography, making photographs, looking at photographs some more, reading about photographs, and then also listening to music and looking at art and doing all kinds of things that involve you in the world so that you can understand what the world looks like and feels like and relate that to your photographic work. And one of the best parts about this is that it just never stops. You can continue to do those things that make you really good at photography, and you will continue to improve, sometimes by leaps and bounds, sometimes by little tiny steps. But one of the great things about doing this strategy of learning about life and learning about yourself and learning about photography is that you continue to do it. And you will continue to get better as you continue to apply more of those ideas about the way in which you approach the world. I'd like to take a minute to thank all of those of you who have made donations, contributions to Camera Position. It really does help me to offset some of the costs of putting this together and hosting the podcast files and so forth. And David and Marty and Larry and Jeff and Thomas and Humayen and Torgier and a number of other folks whose names I may have forgotten. Thank you so much for your donations, and I just really appreciate the fact that you're out there listening and find this content valuable enough to click on that Donate to Camera Position button on the blog page. So thank you for being here for Camera Position number 71, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Camera Position, a podcast about the creative side of photography. Camera Position is a proud member of the Photocast Network, your photo resource in the potosphere. photocastnetwork.com